Well, thank you all for attending this session today, and truly appreciate the support and the interest in our program. Obviously, a lot has transpired in the last week. We're very disappointed that our season ended, and it ended pretty abruptly. And getting ready to board a bus for Georgia Tech, and we're told not to join the bus or to take the bus. And then about an hour later, we're told that our season was canceled. And at the time, it was very, very discerning. And as a coach, definitely put in a tough situation to tell your team that the season was over. At the time, we didn't quite understand everything that was going on in the world. And when you're engaged in your season, sometimes you just get so locked in that you don't pay attention to a lot of things that are going on. But with our administration, we had a meeting about the coronavirus and the possibilities and things that could happen in the future. And probably for me, it became alarming when the entire country of Italy shut down, and then Clemson had required all of their international students to come home. And so we knew that this was a possibility, but last week it kind of slapped us in the face. And definitely feel for the people who had to make those tough decisions. But in hindsight, we're truly glad that they made the decisions that they did at the time. It's one administrator told me it's better to overreact now and look stupid than to underreact and pay the price later on. So I'm very fortunate for our leaders to make the decision that they did, to have the well-being of everybody, most importantly our student athletes, in mind when they decided to cancel the season. So a lot has transpired in the last week. Like everybody, we've been watching the news and trying to pay attention to everything that we're asked to do in regards to social distancing and keeping ourselves safe and healthy. And so it's been an interesting, trying week for everybody, and certainly still feel the pain for our players and really all the student athletes across the country in all sports that were affected.
Coach, this is David Hood, after having to wait so long to play this first season, just for you personally, you don't even get a third of the way through it or whatever, and then it's canceled. How have you handled that, dealt with it, and just some of your personal feelings about that? And I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, David, it's this season was a long time coming. Our coaches and staff and administration have put a lot of effort and energy and time into making this season a reality. And to get off to such an excellent start, to have the crowd, the fan support that we had was just absolutely amazing. The stadium worked out great. We had really an electric atmosphere every game we played in that stadium. And for that to end abruptly, like I mentioned earlier, was kind of a shock, and there's no easy way around dealing with adversity like this, except that you know that we're all going to grow better. Society's going to be better after we get through this. And as student athletes and coaches, we know that, adversity is something that we have to overcome, not only on the field, but in life. And if anything, this is a great life lesson for our players, and certainly it doesn't ease the pain of the season ending so shortly, but I think we'll all learn from this and we'll be better for it moving forward.
Hey, Coach, it's Alex Memenakis here. I was just wondering kind of what the players' reaction was when you had to finally break the news to them, and kind of how they've taken it since the whole thing transpired.
Yeah, Alex, they didn't take it well. It was, like I said, we were getting ready to board a bus to Georgia Tech and had to call everybody in and tell them that we were not going on the trip. And so we had a relatively short meeting just explaining that everything was on hold. And really the tough meeting was about an hour later when the NCAA made the announcement that the spring seasons had been canceled. And that was a very somber moment, especially for our one senior and really all of our players to kind of comprehend how in a matter of 2 hours, we're getting ready to get on a bus and then our season is over. So I think shock is the best word I can use right now. Is we were literally in shock, and certainly at the time didn't know everything that we know now, but understand that those decisions were made for the best interest of everybody involved.
Hey, Coach, this is David Roberts over at the Forsyth County News in Cumming, Georgia. We're the hometown paper of Marissa Bardo. And, she was in the middle of a great season. We've obviously been paying attention to her. And, obviously she was an established player coming into the season already, but I wonder if you could talk about her and her development. Did she exceed expectations this year?
Well, first of all, Marissa is just a wonderful human being and just a great person to start your program with. She does everything the right way. She's a hard worker. She carries herself with such maturity. She was a kind of a quiet leader in our program. Like I mentioned, just a great student, a great person, and finally, a tremendous softball player. And she got off to a wonderful start, was swinging the bat well for us, playing right field. We used her in the designated player role. She was just a core in the middle of our lineup. We had quite the duo in the middle of our lineup with her and Valerie Cagle, and really surrounded them with some pretty good hitters so they couldn't pitch around Marissa. And she got a lot of good pitches to hit because of that, and she took full advantage of it. I believe she was second in the country in home runs at the time the season ended. And, it's unfortunate because she was going to have just an outstanding year going forward.
Coach Eric Boydman, Spartanburg. Did this team surpass even your highest expectations? I'm sure you knew you had obviously some talent on the roster, but for a first-year program to come together like this and get off to the start through the first 25 or so games as you did, on the outside, to many of us, seems pretty remarkable. How did you kind of view it?
Yeah, I can't say that we were surprised because I knew we had a lot of talent. You just never know with a brand new program how people are going to mesh and how things are going to work out. And certainly for the first 10 to 12 games of the season, we had some kinks to work out. We had a really critical injury before the season even started, losing Ansley Gilstrap to a season-ending surgery, and she was penciled in as our starting shortstop. And then the first week in the season, we lose Morgan Johnson, who was our starting right fielder at the beginning of the season. And then a week later to lose Madison May, who was a utility type player that had the ability to play outfield, infield for us. So right off the get-go, within the first 2 weeks of the season, we lost 3 projected starters. So a tribute to our coaches who did a great job of recruiting and putting this roster together for the first year. We had enough versatility and depth to overcome those injuries. And our team, really, the credit goes to them for stepping up. And like I said, we dealt with a few kind of ugly games early in the season, games that we felt like if we'd have played better, we certainly would have won those games. But our players kept working hard, making adjustments, believing in themselves. And I think that's the reason we got off to such a great start. Is we continued to work hard and ended up playing pretty darn well right when conference season started.
Coach, this is John Burton at WSPA. Tell me about the support you had from the fans, and how did the new stadium play? Did it play out like you thought it was going to?
Well, when we first announced ticket sales, we knew we were going to have a lot of support. The ticket sales, season tickets sold out, I believe, in about 3 weeks. And we had to figure out, how we were going to make it accessible for more people to get in and how we were going to work the general admission seating, standing room only seating. So when we had our first fan day in January and there was a huge line to get in and it was sold out, we knew that the community was behind us and the support was there. And just the feeling our players and coaches and staff had on that day in January was pretty special. For a first year program to have that type of support is really unbelievable. And then, the stadium turned out just beautiful. I mean, we couldn't ask for a better facility to play in, a better facility for our fans to watch a game in. As coaches, it's a great facility for player development. So, you know, we really are blessed to be in that stadium, and then to actually start playing games in it, and the electric atmosphere that our fans provided was just awesome.
Hey, Coach. Kayla Burns-Hefner here with ESPN. Although the season was cut short, how have you seen this community, and especially some of your younger female fans that have been looking up to these girls, how have you seen them be impacted by what this team has been able to accomplish?
You know, I think our players are great role models, first of all, and really they had a huge impact on girls softball in this area. You know, for them to be able to sign autographs and be available after games, and for the young softball players in this area to see softball played at a very high level was just great. I mean, it's a community that got behind our program. It's a community where our players have given back in the last 2 years. We've gone out in the community and done a lot of community outreach stuff. So I think it's just a great mutual relationship, and we look forward to continuing it as soon as we can get back on the field and play again.
Coach Eric again in Spartanburg. I guess Gilstrap had another year because of the injury, no matter what. Is that correct? And with Bonamy, have you talked to her at all with the NCAA? I guess granting, even though I guess they haven't released the details yet, but granting another year of eligibility to the spring student athletes. Have you spoken to Bonamy about possibly coming back for another year? And does Gilstrap indeed have another year no matter what?
Well, you know, on both of those situations, the season ended, you know, just last week. So we're going to give those decisions time. I think both players deserve that. And we still don't know all of the ins and outs of how the NCAA is going to handle the eligibility with the seniors moving forward. Ansley, we were going to have to do, or we are in the process of doing an appeal for, because she had season-ending injury and in her 5th year. So we would have to appeal that for the NCAA to grant her a 6-year of eligibility anyway. So, but it's just happened so shortly, you know, that we want to make sure that we give our players enough time to make decisions. You know, this is, you know, certainly a decision that needs a lot of thought and time to make.
Coach, this is John at WSPA again. Were you surprised at the power that your team was able to put out? You out-homered your opponents by more than double.
Yeah, you know, when you watch us practice, we have power up and down the lineup, really, and so it really wasn't a surprise to me based on what we saw in practices and inter-squad scrimmages. But you never know how, you know, hitters are going to react in game situations. You know, there's a little bit more pressure involved. And certainly I think our young team handled that pressure extremely well. And like you said, we are a powerful lineup, and that was one of our strengths, was our hitting, you know, and we relied on scoring a lot of runs to win a bunch of games this year.
Coach, this is David Hood again. I'm going to ask you to do something I know coaches hate to do, but it looked like this team was really beginning to gel. Do you feel like it was a team that was good enough to contend for
definitely,
an ACC
David. I think,
title,
you know,
or
pardon me?
Yeah, for an ACC title, or for, you know, an NCAA tournament? I mean, do you feel like it was a good enough team for all that?
Well, I can tell you this. You know, one of our goals was to beat a ranked opponent, and we did that in Georgia. Another one was to, you know, win ACC series, and our first 2 series we won. I think our team had a lot of momentum, and certainly had a little bit tough schedule left to play in the ACC. But anytime you have a team with confidence, a team that's growing and getting better and improving as the season goes along, you have a chance. And you know, certainly one of our main objectives this year was to shock the world. And I think our team bought into that. We had a great culture. Our team was a very tight-knit group of players and coaches, and certainly liked our chances. And that's, you know, honestly what we were shooting for this year.
Hey, Coach, Kayla with ESPN again. How are you going to remember this season?
Well, you know, this is a very memorable season. And like I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of work and effort put into this program by a lot of different people. you know, the emotions were all over the place this year. You know, we had some really highs and some lows, and kind of a roller coaster of a ride during the season with injuries and overcoming some adversity. But then having some big wins and getting on a roll, and the excitement that came with that. And then just the blessed feeling to play in front of such a wonderful fan base, and to kind of open the eyes to the community about Clemson fast pitch softball. So for me, there's a lot of memories. I know for our players, we made a lot of memories that will last us a lifetime.
How should your players remember this season?
Well, I think they should remember it as, you know, a season where, you know, they were pioneers. They made history, and they will always be a part of history. And the way they competed and the way they played the game, I think they're very proud of themselves. And most importantly, how they conducted themselves on the field, in the classroom, and in the community. You know, I think it's a great building block for our program. The foundation is strong. The culture is strong moving forward.
Any other questions for Coach?
When you look back at all that this team has accomplished, what are you the most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of the way our players came together, and the culture that they helped create, and the foundation that we have. Like I mentioned, I mean, the wins and losses, I told them from the beginning of the year, the wins and losses were going to take care of themselves. We weren't going to worry about that. We were more worried about how we conduct ourselves on a daily basis, and how we build this culture moving forward.
Coach,
Hey, Coach, Mark Whiteman, WYFF. Just curious, all the effort and time that you guys put into building through this season, and then for it to end so abruptly, just how difficult has this week been for you personally?
Well, Mark, you know, like I mentioned earlier, when the decision was announced, I think shock was the word that we all used. You know, it's a lot of work and effort that's put into this program, and to have some success and kind of be on a roll, and watch our players having so much fun playing the game of softball, and then to have it, you know, just end abruptly was a shock. And certainly at the time, we didn't understand if the people making those decisions were overreacting, or, you know, how serious really it was, until a couple of days later. And like I mentioned earlier as well, you know, our hats off to the people who did make those decisions, that they weren't overreacting, you know, and that they had the best interest of the student athletes and their safety and health in mind, and they made the correct decision. Now, at the time, it wasn't easy as a coach to go in and tell the team that the season was over, but looking back on it, you know, it was you know, a decision that was made in the best interest of everybody involved. And, you know, after a week has transpired here, you look back and thank God they made the decisions that they did.
Coach David Hood again. At some point, you're going to be able to get back out recruiting and talking to a lot of young ladies across the country. Now that you have a sample size, now that you have something to show them, what are you going to sell them that's different than the idea that you sold before? What will you be able to sell now?
Yeah, David, you know, I think when we built this program, it was built on recruiting a vision and kind of a philosophy, and kind of what we hoped the culture would look like. And now recruits and families and the community can look at this program and see the support. They can see the players excelling in the classroom and in the community. They see a team that works together extremely well. And like I mentioned, you know, they see a very strong culture.